Did you know there's a king in the history of the UK who simply disappeared? Yes, it's a real-life mystery, and it's wrapped up in the annals of the United Kingdom's rich history. Our story? Our story begins with King Richard II, a monarch full of promise, ascended to the throne at the tender age of 10. His reign was marked by political intrigue, rebellion, and the seeds of what would eventually become the War of the Roses. But the twist in his tale comes not during his reign, but after. The year 1399, Richard was deposed. His cousin, Henry of Bolingbroke, seized the throne and became King Henry IV. Richard was imprisoned, first in the Tower of London and then at Pontefract Castle in Yorkshire. And then, in 1400, Richard vanished. His death was announced, but no one saw his body. You may think, well, he was probably murdered. But here's the catch. In 1410, 10 years after Richard's supposed death, a man claiming to be Richard surfaced in Scotland. He was acknowledged as the real Richard by the Scottish court, causing a diplomatic incident. But was he Richard, or just an imposter? The mystery deepens. So what happened to Richard? Some believe he starved to death in Pontefract Castle. Others think he was murdered, his body hidden away to prevent a martyr's shrine from emerging. And then there are those who believe he escaped, living out his days in secret. The truth we may never know. Disappearance of King Richard II is one of the great unsolved mysteries of English history. It's a tale of power, betrayal, and a missing monarch that has puzzled historians for centuries. And it's just one of the many fascinating stories that make up the rich tapestry of the United Kingdom's past. So where did King Richard go? That's a question we will unravel as we journey through the UK's rich history and sprawling plains. It was here that the first chapters of the United Kingdom's story were written. The first to leave their mark on these pristine lands were the Celts. Originating from Central Europe, these vibrant tribes made their way to the British Isles around 500 years before Christ. They brought with them a rich tapestry of culture, language, and traditions. The Celts were not just warriors, but also skilled farmers, blacksmiths, and goldsmiths. Their influence still resonates today, especially in places like Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, where Celtic languages and traditions continue to thrive. But as the wheel of time turned, the British Isles caught the eye of a new set of inhabitants, the mighty Romans. Led by Julius Caesar, the Romans first landed on British shores in 55 BC, but it wasn't until nearly 100 years later that they truly began to establish their presence. The Romans, renowned for their engineering prowess and administrative acumen, left an indelible mark on the landscape. They built roads, walls, and cities, many of which still stand today. London, or Londinium as it was known then, was a creation of the Romans. Under Roman rule, the British Isles experienced a period of relative peace and prosperity. The Romans introduced new crops, improved farming techniques, and brought a semblance of order to the previously tribal land. But the Roman hold on the Isles was not unchallenged. The Picts the north, the ancestors of the Scots, and the Celtic tribes in the west continued to resist Roman rule, resulting in a land teetering between peace and conflict. But as we know, nothing lasts forever. Change was on the horizon. The stage was set for the next wave of inhabitants, who would shape the destiny of the British Isles. But that's a story for another time, of Britain. These were the Anglo-Saxons, a mix of tribes from what is now Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands. With their arrival, the Roman influence that had dominated for nearly 4 centuries started to fade, making way for an era. The Anglo-Saxons were more than just conquerors. They were settlers, farmers, skilled craftsmen, and warriors. They brought with them their own language, Old English, which forms the bedrock of the English language we speak today. Ever wonder why we call our mother mother and not mater like the Romans? Thank the Anglo-Saxons. But they didn't just bring their language, they brought their gods too. Ever heard of Woden or Thunor? You're probably more familiar with their Norse counterparts, Odin and Thor. Yes, that Thor. The Anglo-Saxons were pagans, and their gods heavily influenced the names of the days of the week. Wednesday, that's Woden's day. Thursday, you guessed it, Thunor's day. The Anglo-Saxons also introduced a new political structure, dividing the land into 7 kingdoms known as the Heptarchy. This division set the stage for much of the conflict and power struggles that would define England's early history. The Anglo-Saxon rule, however, was not unchallenged. The native Britons, the Picts, the Scots, they all had their run-ins with these new settlers. And then, of course, there were the Vikings. But that's a story for another time. The Anglo-Saxon period was a time of transformation, a time that saw the emergence of England as a distinct entity with its own culture, language and identity. It was a period that laid the foundations for the nation we know today. The Anglo-Saxons ruled, but another force was gathering strength across the sea. In the north, a storm was brewing, a storm of steel and fire brought by the Vikings. As the 7th century dawned, England was a patchwork of small kingdoms, ripe for the taking. From the icy fjords of Scandinavia, the Vikings set their sights on these divided lands. These weren't just raiders, but skilled sailors, fearless warriors and shrewd traders. The Vikings first hit the English shores in the late 8th century, appearing like a tempest at the island monastery of Lindisfarne. The attack shook the English to their core. This was not just a physical invasion, it was a psychological one. The Vikings had arrived and they were here to stay. The Viking invasions were not a single continuous onslaught, but waves of raids, interspersed with periods of settlement. They established the Danelaw, a swath of territory across the east and north of England where Danish law held sway. Here they intermingled with the local population, influencing the culture, language and even the genetics of the inhabitants. The Vikings were not just destroyers, they were also builders. They founded cities that still stand today, like York and Dublin. They introduced new technology, like the iconic longship, and brought with them a vibrant culture, rich in mythology and artistry. But the Vikings, not invincible. English resistance began to solidify under the leadership of Alfred the Great. He cultivated a sense of English identity and unity that had not existed before. Battles were fought, territories were lost and won, but the tide began to turn against the Vikings. The Viking Age in England ultimately ended in the 11th century, with the reign of the last Viking king, Canute the Great. After his death, the English throne passed back into the hands of the Anglo-Saxons. The Vikings left a lasting legacy on England. They shaped its geography, its culture, and even its language. But their time in England was a tumultuous one, marked by violence, upheaval, and transformation. But even the mighty Vikings couldn't enter England forever. Had arrived. Picture, if you can, a tumultuous landscape filled with conflict and uncertainty. This was England in the 11th century. The throne was embroiled in controversy, and multiple factions vied for power. Welcome the Normans, guided by the ambitious and resolute William the Conqueror. William, Duke of Normandy, wasn't about to let a good crisis go unused. He claimed that the English throne was his rightfully, and he was ready to wage a war for it. And wage a war he did, at the Battle of Hastings. It was a brutal and gory battle, a struggle until death, really, ending with the demise of the English king Harold Godwinson. This effectively signalled the termination of Anglo-Saxon governance in England. But the Norman conquest wasn't just about a change of rulers. Oh no, it went much deeper than that. The Normans introduced a whole new culture, a new language and a new lifestyle. In fact, their impact was so significant that it forever reshaped the English language. If you've ever been curious about why English has so many French words, well, you can thank the Normans for that. Besides linguistic changes, the Norman conquest also resulted in substantial changes to the English landscape. The Normans implemented the feudal system, which entirely changed the structure of society. They also constructed castles and cathedrals, lasting symbols of their power and an unforgettable imprint on the English landscape. The Norman conquest was indeed a crucial point in English history. It led to massive shifts in culture, language and society that are still visible today. In a way, England as we know it today, with its rich tapestry of history and culture, is greatly indebted to the Normans and their ambitious leader, William the Conqueror. The Normans had made their mark, but what of our lost king? Disappearance? A tale as old as time, Richard II, the boy king who ascended the throne at the tender age of 10, ruled with an iron fist. But his reign came to a sudden and abrupt end. Without a trace, Richard II vanished from the annals of history. Theories abound, each more intriguing than the last, attempting to explain his sudden and enigmatic. One school of thought proposes that Richard was overthrown by his cousin Henry Bolingbroke, who then ascended the throne as King Henry IV. Some historians suggest that Richard was imprisoned and later starved to death in Pontefract Castle, while others believe he escaped and lived out his days in anonymity. An alternative theory, steeped in scandal and intrigue, suggests that Richard actually survived his supposed death in prison. Some historians propose that he made his way to the Isle of Man, where he lived a quiet life as a hermit, far from the cutthroat world of politics and power struggles. Yet another theory, more adventurous than the rest, proposes that Richard escaped to Scotland. There, disguised as a humble peasant, he supposedly spent his remaining years in the Scottish Highlands. This theory is fueled by the discovery of a grave in Stirling, Scotland, bearing an inscription that reads, "Here lies Richard II, King of England." These theories, while fascinating, have their own sets of challenges. They rely heavily on conjecture and circumstantial evidence, as no definitive proof has ever been found to confirm or deny any of them. The truth of Richard II's fate remains shrouded in mystery, a tantalizing puzzle that continues to captivate historians and enthusiasts alike. The mystery of Richard II may never be solved, but his story is just one thread in the tapestry of UK history. England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, separate entities yet bound together. But how? Let's take a bit of a time leap, shall we? To a time when the idea of a united kingdom was but a pipe dream. It all began with the unification of England and Scotland. You see, in the 17th century, both nations had their own parliaments. But then, in the year 1707, the Acts of Union were passed, and voila, the Kingdom of Great was born. This wasn't merely a political manoeuvre, it was also about economics. England and Scotland had been at loggerheads for centuries, with trade disputes being one of the key issues. The Acts of Union allowed for free trade between the two nations, creating a larger and more robust, however. The formation of the United Kingdom as we know it today took another 100 years. Let's fast forward to the year 1801, another Act of Union, this time bringing Ireland into the fold. This Act abolished the Irish Parliament and Ireland became part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. But wait, there's a plot twist. The entire island of Ireland didn't stay in the Union. Fast forward yet again to the year 1922. After a period of civil unrest and negotiations, the southern part of Ireland became a separate entity, now known as the Republic of Ireland. The northern part, however, remained in the United Kingdom. So the UK, as we know it today, is made up of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. The formation of United Kingdom was a complex process, involving political manoeuvres, economic factors and a fair share of conflict. It's a story of unity and division, of shared histories and distinct identities. It's a story that continues to unfold and evolve even today. And so, the United Kingdom was born. But its history is far from over. Wars, the UK has seen it all. Indeed, the evolution of the UK is a tale of resilience, innovation and adaptability. Let's delve into the key events that have shaped the nation we know today. Just as the 19th century dawned, so too did the Industrial Revolution. This period of rapid industrial growth propelled the UK into the forefront of the global economy. Factories sprouted like mushrooms after a spring rain, and cities, such as Manchester and Birmingham, became bustling hubs of production. It was a time of smoke-filled skies and clattering machinery, but also of monumental progress. In the wake of the Industrial Revolution, the UK's influence spread across the globe. The sun, they said, never set on the British Empire, and they weren't far off. From India to Australia, from Canada to the Caribbean, the Union Jack flew high and proud. Yet the turn of the 20th century brought with it two world wars that would forever alter the course of the UK's history. The First World War, or the Great War as it was then known, saw the UK stand firm alongside its allies despite the heavy toll. Then, a mere 2 decades later, World War II erupted. a conflict that brought hardship and devastation, but also saw the UK's spirit of resilience shine brighter than ever. In the of the wars, the UK underwent significant social and political changes. The National Health Service was established, bringing free healthcare to all. Decolonisation saw the dissolution of the British Empire, and the UK became a leading member of international organisations like the United Nations and NATO. The latter half of the 20th century was marked by economic ups and downs, political shifts, and the ongoing process of devolution, granting more powers to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Yet through it all, the UK has remained a key player on the global stage. This brings us to the UK we know today, a nation shaped by centuries of triumph, turmoil and mystery. From its ancient roots to its modern achievements, the UK's story is one of constant evolution, a testament to the indomitable spirit of its people. We've journeyed through the UK's fascinating history, but there's so much more to explore. Imagine a city with a history so deep, so ancient and so rich, it's literally buried beneath its own feet. That's right. Our next adventure takes us to the heart of the United Kingdom, to the city that's seen empires rise and fall, monarchs crowned and overthrown, and wars won and lost. Welcome to London, but not as you know it. We're going underground, that is. Our story will take us back to the Roman era, where we'll uncover the secrets of the city's ancient subterranean world. We'll traverse the forgotten streets of Londinium, the Roman city beneath modern London, and discover the artifacts left behind by the Romans. Then we'll fast forward to the Middle Ages, when the city's underbelly served a different purpose. From secret tunnels used by kings to escape their enemies, to the catacombs that became the final resting place for the city's plague victims, London's underground tells a chilling tale of life and death. But that's not all. We'll also explore the Victorian era, when the underground served as a refuge for the city's poor and destitute. We'll walk the shadowy tunnels of the city's first subway system and learn how it transformed London forever. Finally, we'll journey to the present day, where the ancient intertwines with the modern. Today, London's underground is a bustling network of trains, shops and even art galleries. But what secrets lie beneath the hustle and bustle? You'll have to join us to find out. There's a whole world waiting to be discovered beneath the streets of London. A world of mystery, intrigue and history, a world that's been silent for centuries but is now ready to tell its story. Join me next time as we delve into the hidden history beneath London's bustling streets. Until then, keep exploring, history buffs.